So how did this comedy about a group of backstabbing friends nearly get me killed? Stick around to find out. Before explaining how the league nearly ended my life, I need to talk a little bit about my own personal medical history. For most of my life, I was blessed with great health. So much so that I avoided going to a family doctor for a checkup for over 30 years. In fact, I got so flippant in my attitude that for most of my adult life, I claimed that I'd rather die than get a colonoscopy. And like many men, I was too much of a coward for such an invasive procedure. Maybe if I had kept in touch with my buddy John here, I could have avoided a world of hurt.
Today I wanted to talk about my experience with colon cancer and screening colonoscopies. I had an uncle who unfortunately was diagnosed in his early 50s with colon cancer and passed away from it. There's not a lot of good that can come out of a situation like that, but in my case, he probably saved my life because I talked with my local gastroenterologist and we decided to do a screening colonoscopy in my early 40s. I was found to have a precancerous polyp and it was removed. And I've had multiple colonoscopies since then, and now I'm at the point where I only have to have my colonoscopy every 10 years. So the good part, if there is any good part in the family history, was that it helped me find it early before I developed colon cancer.
As I approached 50 and thoughts of my own mortality began creeping into my brain, I started opening up to the possibility of going through with a colonoscopy. But then at the age of 49, I made what I thought was a harmless decision and decided to start watching the league. If you're not familiar with the show, it's a semi-improvised ensemble comedy about 6 friends and their crude antics as they battle one another in a fantasy football league. It's kind of like a mashup with SportsCenter and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I was hooked from the beginning. With its irreverent humor and football references, the show seemed like it was made for me, and the binge was on. But then everything changed when I got to Season 4, Episode 9, Brolo El Cordero. It began like a typical episode, with the friends tastelessly trying to gain an edge over each other in their fantasy league. Meanwhile, Robert Wagner guest stars as a promiscuous grandfather running wild in a nursing home. But there was one scene in particular with Steven Ranzizi and John Ross Bowie that nearly ended my life, and I'm not exaggerating. Ranzizi was a series regular, playing Kevin. In the real world, he was infamous for perpetuating a decade-long lie that he was working in the World Trade Center during the 9/11 attack. Although not a household name, you probably know Bowie from his most famous role as Barry Kripke on The Big Bang Theory. In this scene, Kevin is at the doctor because a new life insurance policy requires a complete checkup, including a colonoscopy. He is squeamish and has many questions. Bowie's character reluctantly gives a demonstration that no real doctor would ever give. This clip was all I needed to jump back off the colonoscopy train, and any chance that I may have had to go through with it was officially dead. 50 came and went with nary a doctor's visit, but then why should I have? I was in the best shape of my life. This photo was taken when I was 50 years old. I had no idea at the time that there was a cancerous tumor growing inside of me.
Screening colonoscopy is the best way to prevent colon cancer. Colon cancer has become more prevalent in the United States, and we've now decreased the age of initial screening colonoscopies from age 50 to 45. It is very important to do this because most colon cancers start off as polyps, and these polyps can be found during a screening colonoscopy and can be removed. If they're removed, it's very rare that you're going to develop colon cancer as long as you follow the guidelines of follow-up colonoscopies after that procedure. Now, as far as fear, there is some fear associated with it, and we understand that. A lot of people are uncomfortable with getting a colonoscopy. What I would say is I'd rather be uncomfortable getting a mild procedure that's well tolerated and is relatively low risk than finding out later that I have colon cancer. And unfortunately, I've seen that in a number of patients over the years. So my best advice is go get your screening colonoscopy.
While I was too much of a coward to get a colonoscopy at the age of 50, I still got some shocking news. I was about to become a dad again. And when I was 51, we welcomed this child into the world. As he grew, and as I realized that I'll be 70 when he graduates high school, I began to realize that I needed to start worrying about my health. So, in October of 2020, I finally broke down and went through with it. And here's what they found. While the tumor had not yet broken through the colon, it was close. With no time to waste, my surgery was quickly scheduled and the tumor was removed. It sure has been a rocky road these past 5 years, including a second surgery because my cancer metastasized to my liver. But I am currently alive and cancer-free for my 9-year-old boy. Had I not undertaken that procedure 5 years ago, I would certainly be dead today. So the little boy I helped give life to is responsible for saving mine. If my experience isn't enough to convince you to get a colonoscopy, then consider the words of our resident physician.
I've had literally hundreds up to thousands of patients that I've sent for screening colonoscopies and colonoscopies for other reasons, but mostly screening colonoscopies. And one of the biggest things that I had to deal with is people who didn't want to get a colonoscopy. For whatever reason, there was some fear or they didn't think they needed one. The thing that I had to do was try to convince people and explain why is it necessary and why should you do it. And one of the biggest things is explaining to people that colon cancer is preventable. But there's no way for us to know if you have precancerous findings in the colon until someone goes in and looks. Because when they do find something, for example, a polyp, which may be precancerous, it can be removed. And what I have been able over the years to explain to people is the exact process of the procedure. The procedure is in and of itself not bad. You go to the facility where you're going to have it done, you get sedated, and most times you don't remember anything and you wake up afterwards and it's done. And hopefully you have a clear colonoscopy and they'll say, good, we don't have to see you for another 10 years. But I used to tell people, if they do find something, well, that's good because you want to know. If they find it now, there's a high probability they're going to find a polyp in an early stage where it's either precancerous or even if it is cancerous, it's still in the polyp and it hasn't gotten into the wall of the colon and caused cancer that potentially spreads requiring surgery. So please get your screening colonoscopy. It's definitely not as bad as it sounds. And we'll be here to answer your questions and to give you more information as time goes on.
With all of that said, and despite the fact that it almost killed me, I would still recommend The League. So it's currently on Hulu, all set for you to binge. Just skip Brolo El Cordero if you know what's good for you.